everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Knighted Ones podcast. This is episode number 33. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an infamous rapper, an IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Unfortunately, we don't have Ben Stout this week. He took the night off to watch something called the National Championship. I don't know. I have to question his loyalties here. But we will have him back this next week. So let me go ahead and bring in the crew because we have a little bit of a surprise for you that I've been teasing for the last couple of episodes. So let's start, as always, with Nobra. What's up, bro?
Hey now.
He got it. All right. We've got you trained to the point where I'd almost say perfection. But, you're getting there. You're getting there. Just a little deeper when you say it.
Gotcha.
But
hey now.
Hey, there you go. Hey now, try that for next time. All right. So next, let's go ahead and bring in Alan Levin back to the show. What's up, Alan? How are you doing this week?
Hey, how's it going?
Great day, great week. Lots of wins this weekend. A ranked baseball team moved up in the rankings again, and softball got a sweep. So super excited about that. Yeah. Lots to talk about there. Trey Neal, welcome back.
Gentlemen, what's up? What's up?
Gentlemen. Yeah, you use that term loosely around here. But pause. Yeah, exactly. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you again, my friend.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to talk it up with you guys and our special guests about some other stuff. So
some things. All right. Along with that, we're going to bring last but not least, but always last, and welcome back to the show after another vacation, Josh Lazar.
Arizona knows how to party. Arizona knows how to party. In the city of Tucson.
Wow.
That's
okay.
my goal. Make Trey laugh every single time.
Hold on. How is that a rap? You're supposed to rap at the beginning of every episode. Brett is very, very, very disappointed in your rapping skills right now.
Do I need to be Twista every single time I open this show? I mean, come on.
Come on, bro.
I'm gonna
start calling you Nobra. I'm gonna start calling you Nobra for that. All right. But welcome back. We're glad to have you. I've kind of been teasing something for the last few weeks that we're really, really, really excited about. As you know, in my past life, we had a podcast network for the Nightline Network, and now we've joined an even better and bigger community called the College Huddle. The College Huddle is something that's been the fastest growing college sports community in the internet, right? So we've got teams from all over the country that'll be joining us. We've got the G5 representative, all the power conferences represented, independents represented. So perspectives from everybody all in one place. Not only will we have the individual teams, but we'll also have conference podcasts. We will be participating in them. In fact, the first Big 12 College Huddle was recorded, and guess who was number one? Like we always are, UCF. That's right. I participated in that yesterday, so excited to share that. There's a website. We've got Discord, and lots of really, really cool things on the way. And for me, it's a great way to make your experience better. So we're really excited to be part of the network. You'll be seeing more from us, more video content, a bunch of other things as we kind of ramp up our participation. So super excited. I thought rap because I was thinking of you, Josh. But as part of that, we actually get access to a bunch of really, really, really good podcasts from the Big 12. And we're going to be doing some introductions to our new formerly Pac-12, now Pac-2, now Big 12 schools. And to help us do that, we've got Brett Barry here this week. So welcome, Brett. He's from Wildcat 2.0. And thank you for joining us to give us an introduction to the Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah, guys, happy to be here. I feel like I need to raise my energy level to match, between Josh giving the best live rap performance I've heard in hours at least, even threes of hours, and Nobra with the hey now that I feel like he's about ready to say $2 you call it's for the next three songs, but I gotta bring my energy level up a little bit. just to match, get on your guys' level.
Yeah, we bring the bounce house to the podcast world. So, I'm sorry we don't play Zombie Nation on this podcast because we'd get too hyped. But we're excited to have you on the show and excited to learn a little bit more about Arizona. So we all know there was this huge public divorce that happened, for lack of a better term. First time, I think, in college sports that it's really been this public for schools to leave. Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma left. There was everything that happened with the Big 12, but that was still relatively quiet. With the Pac-12, it was a different story. And we, during this whole process as Big 12 fans, we were, there were some vocal Pac-12 communities that weren't exactly excited about joining our conference, and there were others that weren't. So first, I'd like to learn a little bit about what that experience was like for Wildcats fans. What were they thinking when they went through the process, and where's everybody's head at now?
Yeah, I think for most Arizona Wildcat fans, it was a little bit different than most Pac-12 fans, largely due to the Big 12's history of being such a power basketball conference, which is not the thing driving, all of the realignment discussion. We all know it's football. And as we all know, Arizona had a nice football season last year, but it had been a minute. And so it creates a different desired outcome, I think, for most of the Arizona fan base, that I think all in all, they were more inclined and in favor of joining the Big 12 because of that. You could create this, the SEC of basketball in the Big 12, essentially, right? And Arizona's, loves their football program and all of their school sports, but I think that made them more of an advocate of the move than others. Arizona, even in basketball alone, had their issues with the Pac-12. If you guys can recall, even a few years with the refs headhunting Sean Miller when he was the head coach for Technicals, and some other past grievances Arizona fans had with the conference and conference leadership. Couple that with one of the presidents that was kind of propping up the prior commissioner, Larry Scott, was the in-state rival, and kind of blocking some of the changes there. So I think from Arizona's perspective, most fans were an advocate of the move and were pushing for it, whether they were going to drag everyone with them or not. It was going to be the best. It was going to be the best situation for Arizona, right? And when it becomes pretty clear that it's every man for himself, I think Arizona helped drive that a bit. Their hand was forced, I think, by the Colorado news. But I think all Arizona fans more are excited than are disappointed. I think everyone's sad to see the Pac-12 and the history go, but I think they're excited to see what's next.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's a great way of saying it. I know for us, it was a lot of drama. I mean, you had that early morning meeting that was supposed to happen with the Apple deal, and then that kind of fell apart, and all of a sudden it was Arizona and Arizona State, and Arizona was supposed to join the night before, and then they pushed it, and there was all of that back and forth that was happening. It was entertaining. I imagine there'll be a 30 for 30 on that at some point, as like the disintegration of the Pac-12. I don't know what you want to call it. We can come up with something more interesting than that, but for us as Big 12 fans, I know for me, we were excited about bringing the Four Corners in, as they were termed, right? The Four Corners in, and for us, I think from a basketball perspective, everybody understands that Arizona is a legitimate program and a basketball juggernaut that everybody's excited to have in the fold. So we kind of get an idea of where Arizona sits right now as far as how they feel about things. Now, jumping into the conference, let's do a little bit of the Arizona experience. So what should they expect, when we go and visit Arizona for a game? From a tailgating experience, what are the fans like? Are they super vocal? Should we be ready to bring our brass knuckles? What does that look like for Arizona fans? And I'd say it might even be different for football than basketball. If you could kind of give us a preview of that.
Sure. So first, don't pull an ESPN and consistently mistake Arizona State and Arizona. They are They are rivals in every sense of the word. ASU being in the Phoenix area, U of A being in the Tucson area, about 100 miles southeast. But those cities are rivals unto themselves from socioeconomics and otherwise. And I can go into what you can expect from Arizona State, but that'll be a little bit biased, even though my dad graduated from there. Tucson, obviously I'm biased in terms of in favor of Tucson and the University of Arizona, but I always describe it as a really big, small college town. The metro area is over 1 million people, but that whole city is campus centric. People that didn't go to the school or don't go to the school care about what happens at Arizona. They may not have the money to be able to afford to go to all the games. Basketball tickets are very expensive and hard to come by. Arizona in general as a state has a lot of transplant population. A lot of the student body comes from out of state, from California, as does a lot of our athletic talent, which means there's a lot of kind of transplant perspectives. That's probably more common in the Phoenix area than in Tucson, but it still exists. But, with the university is really the game in town. There's no pro sports to compete with. Everyone and everything kind of centers around that. I think that also in the entire state of Arizona, with all the transplants, there's a lot of casual fandom in pro and college sports, more prevalent in the Phoenix area because of all the transplants. I've actually argued that Arizona basketball fans are the one true fan base in the state of Arizona, pro or college. They're informed, they're passionate. They're known for starting U of A chants on national TV on the road against top schools. They travel well for basketball. They're more passionate than most. It's probably more akin to what most people expect from a really passionate fan base. But also when there's the opportunity, Arizona fans, they want to support a winner. They care about the university. They are bought in. It's why I think they outperform for being a smaller school, student body wise and alumni base wise, that in-state rivals that have 100,000 students active at any given moment. There's a bit more passion there and really ties to the community that shows up in a lot of ways. I think in terms of football, if you're going to come to football, we have a really great tailgate situation. There's the University Mall. Big long strip of grass in the middle of stadium, runs from the main street, a couple of levels by the stadiums. Marching band comes through, they'll do a Wildcat walk. The team comes in and walks through the crowd on their way into the stadium. Be forewarned. There's a reason we don't like day games early in the season in Tucson, and sometimes
I can imagine.
And it's a frustration, I think, for especially early season games. There's a lot of late starts that kind of keeps attendance down a little bit, unless it's a big game, because it's starting at 8 o'clock. That's a late start for a lot of people. I just turned 40 like a week ago. I'm usually ready to go to bed around 8 o'clock. So it's a different kind of thing. And even into the fall, if you have a day game and you're in the sun, wear a shade hat, put some sunscreen on. Even if it's right before Thanksgiving, you're going to get burned 90% of the time. But there's cool views of the mountains from the football stadium. Tucson's a beautiful, beautiful city. Emerging downtown, it's got a lot more cool restaurants and bars in a more concentrated way. The campus is pretty condensed so there's definitely the small town vibe there in terms of campus energy. So it's a great place to come.
Awesome. Yeah. Like I see a lot of, it's funny, like and I hate to say this way, ASU was a partner school for us, right? Because we're more like who they are, bigger, number of students, cater to a different group of people, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of tangents there when it comes to that, but I've heard nothing but good things about the area around Arizona's campus, as far as from a food culture perspective and all of that kind of stuff. What do Arizona fans get rowdy? I mean, are they like, is it something where UCF fans show up? Because we're known for being excitable, not in a rude way, so most of the time, but you know, is that something that we should be careful walking around the mall if we're walking around as UCF fans, or is it pretty laid back? Hey, everybody, come hang out, kind of vibe when you go to campus?
I think it's going to be more laid back, friendly, especially in Tucson. At Arizona State and Tempe, it's, you know, your brethren there are sometimes just looking for something to get good and mad and drunk and mad at. Might be a little bit different. Obviously not everybody, but it's just a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's more likely to be rowdy at a basketball game because the fan base is a little bit more passionate. It's basically always sold out. McKale Center, I think, is the biggest capacity college-only arena on the West Coast. I think it's 15,000 people, and usually sold out. You know, so that's probably a little bit more intense, you know, than football games. And it's for Arizona football, most of the last few years up until recently, there wasn't that much reason to put up to get that worked up into talking. But also I think it's been fun watching Arizona's progression and getting better. Like when North Dakota State came through, they traveled incredibly well, and their fan base was a little bit like friendly rowdy, if you want to call it that, from at least what I experienced. But that made for a fun environment, right? You know, obviously there's exceptions there, but I think in general, Arizona fans, for the most part, are pretty friendly and easy to get along with. But they did also start selling beer and alcohol in the stadium about 5 years ago, so that's kind of always a wild card for certain individuals.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wild card anywhere. We used to only sell that. For a while, we didn't sell it at all. We had actually an incident back pre our stadium being built, our on-campus stadium being built in 2007, that was alcohol related, where they banned everything. And then they let it back into the club areas. And then now it's everywhere. So yeah, I think that's with every fan base. Just look at any NFL team's weekend X posts, and you'll see some sort of brawl somewhere. And I think that extends into college football, though not as much. You know, we've been talking a little bit about, and you mentioned it, you know, the past performance of the football team. You guys had some turnover this year. You've got a new head coach. I believe it's Brent Brennan, and he comes from San Jose State, I believe. He was there for 7-8 years. But you guys had some momentum going in football. You also had, you know, a pretty solid recruiting class, NIL link. But you know, with a big brand name quarterback, how much has that move impacted you guys? As far as I don't think I remember reading, I don't think you guys had very many people leave, and I think your quarterback stayed. How do you expect that move to impact performance for Arizona their first year?
Sure. So first, Brent Brennan was who finished as the runner-up to Jed Fisch the last go-around. And there was a strong contingent that was pushing for Brent Brennan, who's not an alumni, but actually was a grad assistant back during the Dick Tomey heyday. His brother was a receiver on the football team. He met his wife while his brother was at U of A. So he has about as many ties to the University of Arizona as you can have without actually being an alumni. He actually spoke at Dick Tomey's funeral, the old football coach, when he passed away. And, you know, when the season ended last year on a high, Arizona, you know, pulled off the upset of Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. They're staring at down the barrel of a top 10 preseason ranking, which is kind of unheard of for Arizona because that team did not have many seniors. It was something like only like 13 seniors on that roster. And so there was a lot of excitement that this core is all coming back. Like Tedero McMillan, T-Mac, the 5-star receiver, is not even draft eligible. Noah Fafita, you know, say the big quarterback, he's not big. He's probably 5'9", maybe, but he plays big. He's a guy that if he was a few inches taller, probably wouldn't have come to Arizona, would be playing quarterback at USC as a SoCal guy. But there was a lot of optimism that the roster was coming back. And then, you know, the coaching, the when Nick Saban retires, it starts the wheel spinning.
Dominoes. Yeah.
And former athletic director of Arizona is now athletic director at the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. Yeah. And it just starts, the dominoes start to fall. And Jedd Fisch is known for being a job hopper. His resume has shown that. And
okay, but hold on. We all saw the video. I mean, I don't think you could have handled that. It's never easy to do, right? Especially in high-profile jobs like that. But I think you could have handled that a little bit better.
Jedd Fisch, you mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of there was a lot of information that was being presented to media members around that, because the city of Tucson and Arizona fans took it personally. Jedd Fisch spent 3 years saying about it's personal, and I think he thought that and even said when he was introduced himself to the fans in Seattle at the basketball game that our culture travels, and it's like, well, maybe not so much. Because within a couple of weeks, obviously they pulled a number of really talented players. They took would have been our starting running back, one of our starting corners, really great players like high 3, 4-star type guys, and a handful of others. But the bulk of that team decided to come back. Jedd Fisch took a page from the Dick Tomey playbook when Arizona was at its best. They were really emphasizing ties to the Polynesian community, where you can get those big athletic linemen. But you can build on the West Coast, you can really build your roster from the inside out. The Polynesian community believes it when you say something is personal, and they're building the culture. And Noah Fafita and T-Mac are two of those poly players on the roster. And it has been reported that they led a players only meeting that kind of helped keep everything together. And those two guys were probably the linchpins. And so, if you take I think it's about 7 guys ended up in commits that never actually, or maybe they registered were going to be early enrollees that then transferred to Washington. But can you really lose what you didn't have, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Probably, 7, 8, 9 players and recruits that are up in Seattle now. But realistically, with the senior class being so small last year, it's not all that dissimilar than just a normal graduating class in terms of the number of bodies you got to replace. Granted, you're replacing some talented guys, including the guys that are probably going to get drafted here in a couple weeks, including your left tackle. That they're one of their starting running backs, Michael Wiley. I don't know if he's going to get drafted, but I would bet you $5 he's going to make a roster, because he does a little bit of everything really well. He's going to make a nice career on special teams. And then Jacob Cowing, the undersized receiver, that was a compliment to T-Mac that came from UTEP. They're losing some talent, but they also had guys waiting in the wings from some of those past recruiting classes. And there's Jedd Fisch's first full recruiting class where he had T-Mac and Noah Fafita. That would be the one that if Arizona has a great season and you build a 30 for 30 and going through all the drama of this, that class has both high-end talent and it has a hit rate damn near top to bottom. Even after only a couple of seasons, the 4th and 5th lowest guys are major contributors. Jacob Manu was an all Pac-12 linebacker last year. He was like the 4th or 5th lowest rated player in that class. Wendell Moe, the left guard, was probably the 2nd lowest rated, and he's looking like a guy who's going to play in the NFL all of a sudden. So all in all, from an Arizona perspective, it was a tumultuous offseason to say the least. But then you still have that culture and that core in place, and then you bring in a guy like Brent Brennan, who is known for being a really genuine, authentic leader. And I've talked about this on our pod, where I think there's some people that think in the cutthroat business of college football that people get a little concerned that the whole nice guys finish last kind of thing. Because he didn't, his win-loss record at San Jose State isn't going to wow you. But also, if you know anything about their program, Brent Brennan developed a reputation for getting the most out of the least. I mean, they had their assistant coaches having to be the ones that are setting up and the tables and chairs for team meals themselves. They didn't have anybody even do that. So they're going from a environment where they were having to recruit and develop more than anything else. And now the real question is going to be, okay, you have the talent to start with today. Can you make good use of that, put players in the best chance to be successful? And then can you recruit at a different level to be able to compete in the Big 12 and trying to stay relevant nationally. And it's just a different thing. And until we see it happen, there's always going to be those question marks.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, more and more in college football is kind of the head coach has kind of turned into the CEO of the program. I know Gus Malzahn has gone back and forth. Our head coach has gone back and forth about talking about that role and how his role fits in it. I'm actually pretty familiar with and friends with a couple of the coaches that have worked for Nick Saban and how he runs his shop. Do you feel like Coach Brennan is prepared for that? And, you've got the NIL type of situation now. Every coach is dealing with it. I remember I was having lunch with a higher level G5 coach, and he's sitting there and he's at the spring meetings and we're smoking cigars, and he's sitting there and he's just fielding phone call after phone call after phone call. And they're just negotiating these players, right? Like right there in the middle of spring meetings for the spring conference meetings. Do you feel like Coach Brennan is prepared for that? And what does, the NIL pot look like for football and basketball?
So there's a lot to dive into on that. And, I guess I'll start with the NIL factor, because I think that contributes a bit to how Arizona was able to retain a lot of the players they did retain. I do not think Arizona has, a top 15 NIL program in football. But I don't know if you guys got it. It was kind of a big story locally when Humberto Lopez, one of the big donors, shall we say, felt personally offended and lied to by Jedd Fisch, as he had ostensibly verbally agreed to a contract extension, and his text messages to Jedd Fisch got made public that said, I thought we were friends. I take this personally. And basically, reading between the lines, he says, I'm not going to let you buy our players. So I think that opened up the checkbook quite a bit. Now, is that a permanently stable thing from one donor? Probably not. But I think, just like the 20 losses in a row and the 70-7 disaster, I think woke up Arizona's alumni base and fan base to really want to invest in the program. I think maybe that Humberto Lopez and Jedd Fisch leaving kind of made Arizona fans take things a little bit personally. Mm-hmm. I think that contributes to that. In terms of, you talked about the head coach being a bit of a CEO role, and I think that's how Brennan, at least so far, the early returns in spring practice is how he kind of operates. I think you can kind of see that CEO approach in the hires he made on the staff. He brought a lot of his staff from San Jose State. Some of the guys are really well regarded. Alonzo Carter, the running backs coach, is well regarded as a leader. Also, fun fact, was MC Hammer's backup dancer and choreographer in his Can't Touch This video, which is a fun little fact.
Josh, you don't even have to do a fun fact of the week this week.
There you go.
Brett's got you covered.
And then another fun fact when it comes to Arizona football is they had, Brent Brennan is the third coach. He's one of three coaches on this roster that has head coaching experience between himself, new offensive coordinator Dino Babers.
That was it.
Hey, hold on. Dino Babers has a special relationship with UCF. He was our head coach for exactly -1 day before Scott Frost came in.
You can close your eyes and think about it.
Yes, I was about to do the close your eyes thing because he I don't know. Sorry, I know this is detracting from real stuff, but for UCF fans, Dino Babers, he was rumored to be the head coach and was going to be announced as the head coach, and then he took the Syracuse job. It was him and Scott Frost, which I'm surprised you guys haven't hired Scott Frost since he's right there in Arizona as offensive coordinator. But, we have a very special relationship with our head coach, Dino Babers.
Yeah. And that was my fun fact. So I got to do another one now. Great.
Probably as close of a relationship as USC had with their former offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, before he left and said, I'm out. I'm the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals now. But the other, perhaps underrated thing nationally that people don't realize is they have a linebackers coach that was Arizona State's old defensive coordinator before he became the head coach at New Mexico, Danny Gonzalez, and he was very well regarded as a defensive coordinator at ASU. And he's coming in as just a linebackers coach with Dwayne Akina. If you don't know Dwayne Akina, just go look up some fun images of him coaching. He's like 70 years old and still likes to get on all fours and be a part of the drills and barking at guys. He was involved in Arizona's famous Desert Swarm defenses. He's been, all across the country. He actually had left briefly to go to Texas with Johnny Nansen. It sounded like maybe Jed Fisch had rubbed some of the coaches the wrong way, and then he came back to be the defensive coordinator. And so he is the defensive coordinator, does not have head coaching experience, but is kind of the godfather in that room. And that's kind of where I think, when you don't have multiple potential All-Americans on the defensive side like you do on the offensive side, those kind of coaches and experience are going to be really valuable as they try to recruit and fill some of the gaps for guys that left, but also put them in the best chance to be successful. And you saw that last year with Dwayne Akina and getting these guys in the secondary, like the Alma Bowl MVP, Gunnar Maldonado. Most of the season, Arizona fans were wondering why he's on the field. He was getting a lot of missed tackles. A local kid from Arizona in the Chandler area came back from Northwestern and just never tried real hard, but was, missing like literally 25% of his tackles were broken tackles. And then something clicked and he was forcing turnovers. He had that big, long touchdown return. And I think another fumble recovery interception in the Alma Bowl, if I recall. And that kind of development from 3-star guys that turns into a secondary that helps you win the Alma Bowl against Oklahoma shows you the value of Dwayne Akina as a mentor and a schemer and a developer of talent. So to tie that back to Brent Brennan, I think that from a CEO perspective, he's doing the right things. Now, how does that play out as we go to recruiting? How does that work in terms of fundraising for NIL? You can take anger and righteous indignation from billionaires a little ways, but you can't rely on that in that anger for perpetuity. But I think Brent Brennan has a personality type that is going to that reflects the city of Tucson fairly accurately, and that kind of genuine, authentic, true culture builder. That is also kind of the antidote of what Jed Fisch did when he up and left all of a sudden. And there's a lot of talk that perhaps he was the one slow rolling the contract extension so he wouldn't increase his buyout and he could take the money and run. I don't fault him for taking the money. I think he could have left it a better way. Me and my podcast host have had some conversations around this. I think he's a little more jaded as a former professional sports journalist, so he's seen it all before a little bit. But it's a really interesting offseason for Arizona. They still have 14 open scholarship spots heading into spring portal. So they're going to be able to plug and play some guys into this roster. Arizona has more. There were more interesting, talented receivers that Jed Fisch didn't rotate at receiver at all. Granted, they had T-Mac and a future NFLer Jacob Cowing, so why would you? But they had some talented guys back there that are finally going to get their chance to see the field. And I think a lot of people are excited for that. Hopefully, that helps you retain a bunch of them. But it's the storm came, it hit, and the program remains despite the fear that it could all have evaporated really fast and just gotten on the next train to Seattle.
Well, we know all about fun off seasons as UCF fans. When you're in the G5, you kind of get your coordinator of the future that turns into a head coach. He does really, really well. Then within 2 or 3 years, they're gone, and then you have to start all over again, right? So we've done a lot of that. So it's funny. Some of the things that are happening now in the P5 were kind of what we and others in the G5 had to go through. So now they're having to learn what we've already done. And I think in some ways that positions us better than some P5 teams who've been able to, rely on name recognition for a really, really long time. So it's an interesting dynamic. All right. So we talked about money a little bit. We talked about NIL a little bit. There's no getting around this. You also have some movement in the president's chair over a little bit of cash flow issues on the academic side. How is that going to impact athletics, if anything? Is there any projects that you guys had, athletic facilities projects that are impacted, coaching staff, hire, anything like that? I'm assuming athletics is a DSO, so it may be a little bit insulated. But I'm just curious if you guys foresee any impact from that.
So I think you're referring to President Bobby Robbins, saying he was going to leave. I don't know if you read the full details, because he said he will leave unless they ask me to leave at the end of his contract, which I think is not for like another 18 months or something like that.
Exactly. He put out the presser that said, I'm going to help transition to the new president or whatever.
And you may have also read that they dismissed the athletic director, Dave Hickey, a few months back, and everybody was kind of like, all right, what does that mean? We don't want to pay a buyout when we already have financial issues. But then they went and snagged Mizzou's, she just literally came to Arizona and got an award for the top athletic director in the country for her time at Mizzou while now at Arizona. And she actually has ties to Arizona. She went to law school here. So that seems like a really good hire. I don't know if that was a Robbins hire or otherwise. In terms of the impact of Bobby Robbins, he is definitely a school president that cares about college athletics and success in sports, sometimes to his own detriment. There's rumors that he was even, suggesting play calls to past football head coaches at the university. I don't know if that's true or not, or how serious or just kind of casual that was thrown out there, but he was not somebody that was going to hurt for wanting to push for Arizona to have excellence on the field. And so whenever there is a change, there is always uncertainty. You don't know if that means it's going to be better, worse, or about the same. Above Bobby Robbins, there was also, Arizona is governed by the Arizona Board of Regents, who makes some of these hires. That partially what helped was the part of the scapegoat from the Jed Fisch camp on his contract extension not being fully executed, which that's a whole other thing that I think was agent speak. But there was also turnover on that, especially some of the guys that were on that board that were more tied to the University of Arizona. So that's also in flux. The governor of the state of Arizona it's become a bit of a thing, and it's become a political thing as she's kind of inserted herself in, as she's part of the Board of Regents. So we'll see how it plays out. It's a little too early to say what's going to happen until we know what the change is going to be and when that change is even going to happen. Because if it's not until June 30th of 2026, there's two Olympics between now and then, right?
Yeah, I would argue that more than likely, having been involved indirectly with searches for presidents and chancellors at new universities, it's usually about a 6-month time frame for them to get spun up once someone is chosen. I doubt it goes through 2026. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly interesting. The other part about that I think you touched on, UCF, one of our keys ever since John hit, who was here for, 20 years, 25 years, something like that. He really put an emphasis on athletics. And every president that's come in after that understands that athletics is a focal point for the university. So I'm hoping for, being that it's the flagship university for, the state of Arizona, that the expectation is that athletics is also continues to be a focus. All right. I know we promised you 30 minutes. I think we're a little bit above that. We can talk football and sports for literally hours. We do it every week. So, what one thing do UCF fans need to know, or did I not ask about, that you want to impart about the University of Arizona? Obviously, we'll be talking again at some point now that we're all part of the same podcast family. But is there something that you want to leave? And then if you could also, just share where people can find you.
Sure. I think, if there's one thing to know about Arizona fans, like I mentioned at the beginning, I think it's a pretty proud fan base and alumni base. They take pride in, all of the sports. They've had a pretty good history of success in those sports, aside from the, that little blip of football for a hot minute. And and it's a unique time for Arizona, and even to the point of, the president replacement. I think Arizona fans understand with the conference realignment, and I think the leadership understands that sports matter, especially I don't think we think this is going to be the last realignment, this incarnation. And so you don't want to be, in the Big Two here in 4 years, right? In the Pac-12 to Pac-2 joke reference. But I think Arizona fans genuinely care about their university. They're engaged. They're I think a pretty fun fan base. It's somewhere between the West Coast chill and some of the Midwest intensity. And then when it comes to Arizona basketball, lean a little more on the intense side. But in terms of where you can find us, we are an audio only platform as of right now. So we're on anywhere you can find, podcasts. We're at Wildcat Radio AZ on the X Twitter machine. I try to run that handle, but I have a full-time job, so I try to be involved on that and have snarky comments during games. You can usually tell if I've been imbibing in a craft beer or two. And then also my co-host writes for the SB Nation site, AZ Desert Swarm, all the time, so you can find some of his content there regularly. He usually has a weekly column on there. But yeah, we're excited to be joining the conference and excited to talk to you guys again as we're previewing some matchups.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was well said. And, we, like I said, as Big 12 fans and as UCF fans, I think we're all excited that Arizona is joining. I think ultimately the conference will be stronger because of it. And I think we outlast the ACC because of the moves that we've made. Between the previous teams that we brought in and then obviously the new folks coming in. And I think Utah will want to be out of here as soon as possible. They think they belong in the Big Ten anyway, but we won't talk about Utah. So shout out BYU fans. I'm taking your mantle up for against Utah. So I'm hoping they're our next rival. All right. Outside of that, super excited that you were able to join us. Appreciate it. We will definitely talk some more. Welcome to the Huddle family and the Big 12 family. And if there's ever anything we can do for you, let us know. And when you make it down for a game, let us know as well. We know how to tailgate. We are boisterous. It's a young fan base. Average age, I think, is 35 years old. So it gets a little rowdy in the bounce house. And look forward to chatting to you some more soon.
That sounds great, guys.
All right. Thank you. Well, that was super exciting. Our very, very first huddle with our compatriots from our new podcast network. And, as it was a huddle, we're going to transition right into UCF football. Omaha, what? Oh, sorry.
We're 42.
And hey guys, I'm excited that they were excited about our energy. So hopefully that means by episode 33, we're not putting people to sleep. Clearly, that's a good thing. And we got some feedback from our fellow podcaster who, they do radio and they're a pretty big deal in Arizona. So it's good that they were excited by our excitement. So I guess I'll leave it at that. All right. Exciting. So yeah, that's exciting. All right. Pivot. We had our, there you go. We had our second scrimmage last weekend. Alan has some notes from the scrimmage. So I'm going to pass the mic to him and let him wax poetic on who stood out.
Yeah, we talked a little bit last week about the first scrimmage, but this recent scrimmage, I guess they invited out some donors to this scrimmage. So fortunately, some of the aforementioned followers that I have on social were happy to send me a little bit of information. None of it is, some of it is interesting. Not some of it is just, as expected, but I think the biggest takeaways I had are a couple things on offense, but mostly it was on defense and special teams. So just a quick overview of what I, got from a couple guys that were at the actual scrimmage. So Burdell Richardson continues to be a guy that's going to play as a freshman. I think it's pretty clear now. He's looking like, UCF has a void at wide receiver 3, and guys like Chauncey Magwood and Trent Whittemore had a couple nice catches, but Burdell Richardson really looks like way beyond his years. Doesn't appear to be a freshman or like a freshman. And he's the early favorite as the wide receiver 3. He had apparently they were targeting him early and often a lot in this intra squad scrimmage. So that was really good to hear. You like to see some of these freshmen that will get on the field right away, like a Randy Pittman last year or John Walker. On top of that, apparently
is
Goldie,
he playing with the 1s or is he playing with the 2s?
He was playing with the 2s, but I think that is more just a product of not fully knowing the playbook yet and a couple other things. So I think he's on track right now to be that wide receiver 3 behind Townsend and Hudson. And then, Magwood and Whittemore got a lot of play time, but a lot of that was because Kobe Hudson is sitting out with an injury right now. It's not serious, but that's part of the reason why they got play time. Apparently Goldie Lawrence looked really good. I got the term quote unquote stud, showed some great speed, good physicality, made a lot of plays after the catch. So maybe he's someone, that transfer from Florida State that could, make some noise for us next year. If it's not Burdell Richardson. Then most of the other guys on offense was as expected. The quarterback, not much controversy there. Obviously KJ looks like the guy. He had some nice deep plays. Connected with a few of his targets on some big plays in the scrimmage. And then Timmy McClain is apparently by far and easily the QB2 or the backup QB. None of the younger guys just look ready yet. So I think UCF is really going to roll in with a very similar look to last year after obviously KJ, which would be Timmy at QB2 and then Dylan Rizek at number 3, because the Colson and Riley Trujillo are just apparently just kind of, they look like freshmen, so they're not really ready yet. But the bigger takeaways were on defense. I was excited to hear this. Antoine Jackson, the former 4-star DB that transferred from ECU, apparently had 2 really nice pass breakups, was really disruptive there in the secondary. So that's good to hear. But the bigger thing I took away was the linebackers. Apparently Josiah Pierre, who transferred over from Texas Tech, and then Ethan Barr, who was a captain over at Vanderbilt, has made some really good plays. They're looking like they could be the early favorites to start at the 2 of the linebacker positions. Ethan Barr had a tackle for loss, and then Josiah Pierre had a couple pass deflections and just kind of overall looked really good back there or in the middle there. So, we've been talking about linebacker. Obviously, every single linebacker from last year that started is gone. Jason
We've been
Johnson.
talking it for 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's not just last year.
No, you're right. 100%.
What's his name left, pretty much.
Tatum Bethune.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't really had a solid. I mean, Jason Johnson was obviously great last year, but outside of him, it was really, really thin. So
we haven't had more than one. I mean, when we had Bethune, we had JJ. Is it JJP or JPP? The JJP.
JJP.
Yeah, we had JJP and Bethune, in the linebacker spot, and then JJP got hurt, and then Bethune transferred, and then JJP transferred, and we really haven't had anybody back there that can pick up the mantle for those guys.
That's exactly right. So, UCF really did reinforce the linebacker. They brought in 4 linebacker transfers. And as we talked about last week, not just that, they have 2 guys at UCF listed as DBs on their official transfer picture, but have played at linebacker, which would be the 2 of the Cincinnati guys, Deshaun Pace and drawing a blank on the other guy's name, but they had both played some time at linebacker.
Byron Threats.
I think it's the third one. The other one. So Brian Threats is a safety. It was Pace, and who's the other one?
We had the other one was a running back.
Oh, you're right. So I guess you're right. That's right. Miles
Yeah.
Montgomery, right? So it must be those 2 that have played some time at linebacker. So really, they have 4 official linebacker transfers, but 6 guys that could be, in theory, play linebacker. So if UCF doesn't hit at least 2 out of 6, that's going to be an issue. But like I said, there's some early buzz with Ethan Barr and Josiah Pierre. And then the other kind of takeaway I got was on special teams. Apparently, there was a press conference, I think last week that was public, that Colton Boomer came out and talked about part of his rocky sophomore season was due to injury. And I think, Roger, you had alluded to, he had maybe a dead leg from also handling kickoff duties and all that stuff. Apparently he looked a little better, but was still shaky and missed a couple of kicks. So they did bring in, I don't know if this is, he was listed as a 5-star, which is Grant Reddick, a freshman, was listed as the number 1 kicker by On3 when we recruited him. He apparently was lights out and converted on every field goal kick that he had the opportunity to kick. So if I think Colton obviously right now would be the incumbent starter. But if things start to go south again, Reddick is, looking like he could take his place, and it was fairly automatic, at least in these scrimmages, which obviously don't have a lot of pressure and it's not a real game, but we know that there's someone back there that could potentially kind of take over if Colton Boomer continues to struggle, from like he did last year. So those were kind of the big takeaways. A couple other just some minor things. Randy Pittman and John Walker look like they already had great freshman years, but they are looking bigger, faster, stronger. Like they're going to have an excellent sophomore year. And I think for Pittman, that's great, because if we don't have that official wide receiver 3, Pittman can kind of have that Jordan Atkins type of role like he did in 2017, where you kind of have your tight end.
It's not Jordan Atkins, it's Jaylon Atkins. We already know that.
What? Did I miss that? I must have missed that episode.
Me too. Me too, Alan.
No, people kept messing up. People kept messing up his name and calling him Jaylon Atkins instead of
like online.
Online, like some of the games
played in,
they were calling him Jaylon Atkins. Like it was a mess.
Okay, gotcha.
It's those old head jokes.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the only other thing was we just alluded to his name, but Miles Montgomery. He's fortunately for Johnny Richardson, is looking like Miles Montgomery. He's obviously way different mold than Johnny. He's way bigger. And he looked really good. He got a lot of carries, was breaking some tackles, but and then speaking of Johnny Richardson, they were apparently feeding to him a lot, either in the slot or just giving him kind of like outside runs. And he was unfortunately burning a lot of linebackers. So take that as you will. Is it just that he's super, super fast, or we're still having issues, with running backs and tackling? I don't know, as it's one scrimmage, but apparently he was just kind of, taking it down the sideline and was not getting caught at that second level or, by the linebackers.
I was hearing about that too. And, the thing that it kind of reminded me of was the Otis Anderson type of role, though I think Otis Anderson's a little bit more shifty. Richardson, the big thing for him is he's a give and go guy. You get the ball in his hands and he's going to run, and he accelerates really, really fast. He's one of those guys, state champion runner, those type of guys. So I'd expect that from him. If you get him in space and not having to get behind the line and start from zero, and you're hitting him in stride, I expect him to be able to accelerate pretty quickly. And he was hurt last year too. So people were wondering why he wasn't getting as much play time. He was hurt last year. Didn't really want to give the details out last year, but I was told that from people on the team. So they were taking it gingerly with him, but he's supposed to be back up to full strength. So I expect him to see a lot more touches this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be too worried.
All right.
If it's outside runs, I wouldn't be too worried, just because that's not really where we struggled the most, I think. Now, if they were just getting killed up the middle, then I'd have problems. But I mean, I expect that from Johnny. He's like Roger said, he's explosive there.
The thing about it is, and Gus said it too, everybody thought of the Big 12 as the air raid style offenses. And last year it was all power run game, and they just wore us out. So if we can get the A gaps and B gaps locked down, I think our defensive end spots, if they stay disciplined, that was the big thing last year, was having them stay disciplined. I think if we've got the linebacker help to be able to rush 4 and get pressure, because we've got great interior linemen, if we I think they will break that down and push them to the boundaries. We've got an upgrade in the defensive backs that'll be able to make up for any issues that we have on the linebacker side if they're not scraping properly or whatever. That's just run fits more than anything else. But the Ted Roof has said all season his stop the run, stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. Same way with Gus.
He's always been like that.
So, that depth is what we were missing after Kansas State. I think was a glaring example of that, where they just wore us out on the line. And we had undersized linebackers. And now we've got some safety size and some linebackers with good size. So hopefully, to Alan's point, if we got 6 players that can rotate through linebacker, we got enough depth there to carry us through the season in a very run-heavy Big 12.
Very true.
All right. Did you have anything else for us, Alan?
No, I had one other thing, but I was hoping to get, just a little more information on maybe some more freshmen that stood out outside of Burdell Richardson, but I guess no one really. The only other name I heard, not specifically from this scrimmage, but just in general over the spring, was the DB Jaylon Hayward, who's also been someone that sounds like they're ready to play as a freshman. But outside of that, I mean, I think we've all talked about, we generally get 1, 2, maybe 3 maximum freshmen that are ready to start from day one. So didn't get too much information on the freshmen. The other thing I heard, though, was the O-line, which obviously we lost some big names there with Tylen Grable and a couple other guys that have moved on. The O-line, apparently some of the new pieces have started to gel pretty well with the rest of the O-line, and apparently KJ had a lot of time to throw. I mean, take that as you will, because I'm pretty sure they, what are they, green shirt or red shirt, whatever it is, so they can't tackle him, during those kind of scrimmages. But apparently he had a lot of time to throw and wasn't getting sacked. So I guess that's a good thing. But that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing with O-line to watch is Caden Kittler. Whether he had some issues last year, whether he's resolved those and is going to be that center for us, that we have a backup center that's pretty good as well that we brought in was a transfer. The other thing to watch is Paul Rubel. He's finally cracked the ones right now. And I mean, that dude's 6'10" and I don't know how many pounds, but if he throws back a few beers before the game, I think it'd be hard to move him off the ball. So if they are truly starting to gel, we do have some size on the offensive line that should help us in Big 12 play.
Yeah.
Well, 2 things, but you, Roger, and Alan put together are probably still less than Paul in weight. Definitely not height, but probably in weight.
He's like 6'10", or something like that.
Well, he's a big dude. But I actually talked to Caden when I was at the scrimmage for a while, actually, to the point he's like, I got to get to the cold tub. But he had a very optimistic attitude about how the season was going, and that was just that was shells and a couple of practices in. So a really great guy to talk to as well. But I feel like that this feels good attitude that I got at the scrimmage is continuing down the road, because it really seems like that.
Yeah, I get a lot of confidence from everybody that I hear, and it's not just like the traditional we've got dogs, whatever, type of thing that you hear every single offseason. I feel like there's a different vibe about this team and a lot more confidence. So,
and they also seem to be really complimenting Ted Roof's system as being more aggressive, more going after the quarterback, which I feel like you always hear the defensive players talk good about when there's a new DC, but it does seem they're all being pretty consistent. I mean, mainstays like Quadric Ballard and guys that have been here for a while that have seen a few different DCs in their day here all seem to be really complimenting, and it seems to be more aggressive and stuff. So
it's a more it'll be interesting to see Trey's take during the season, but it's a more complex defense based on someone who's been doing this a long time. So more disguising of blitzes, more movement in the backfield. There's going to be everything that I've heard. It's not as vanilla of a defense, so it's going to be harder for offenses to combat that. So I think, I love his press conferences with sunglasses on or not, but Ted Roof is on there and he's just like, rah, 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 rah. He's been yelling the whole time and very like, we're going to stop the run. That's it. We're going to be aggressive on defense. We want to get pressure with 3 and 4 down linemen, but we're going to go primarily 4 down linemen. You stop the run, and then we've got good enough defensive backs, blah, 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 right? So not quite Coach O level, but definitely I think that's someone, as a former defender, that's someone I can get behind. If you're going to scheme, if we've had vanilla defenses earlier, we're going to be able to scheme. That gives us matchup opportunities. If we've got matchup opportunities, I'm going to stand out as a defender. It makes it a lot harder on offenses to scheme blocking, and it also makes it a lot harder on offenses to run you over if they know you're coming. So, Trey, I'll be excited to see as we go throughout the season what you're picking up on and compare notes on what the difference was between last year and this year.
Yeah, I mean, if technically it's Gus's 4th year, so the scheme should be somewhat similar from the past 4 years. Now there's going to be little nuances that change with each coordinator we've had. I think this is our 3rd one. But yeah, I think, the guys should be comfortable, at least in the base stuff, so they can add those layers. That was kind of the difference, I think, for us, that for Coach Frost, that first year to 2nd year, was we kind of knew the base, so we could get more in depth. We can make more specific adjustments. So like when we play an Anthony Miller, we can make different kind of calls in the back end versus just vanilla stuff. When we play Quentin Flowers, we can kind of change up the looks that we haven't shown. When we play, all those Cortland Sutton, Daryl Henry, like all those kind of things. When you're in year 2, year 3, year 4, you don't really add too much more. You just get more specific with how you want to attack. So I think, Coach Roof probably, just being a more experienced, more seasoned guy, he has a lot more of that, that wisdom and some different strategies. Because again, Addison Williams last year was a young guy. Not to take away his experience, but he was a young guy.
Brand new coordinator, first time coordinator. So was his predecessor.
It's a lot easier to, draw up plays Monday through Friday. It's easier to say this is what we should do Monday through Friday, but it's a whole different ball game calling plays live. It's a different ball game calling plays from the first quarter to the 3rd and 4th quarter. It's so much different. And I think, having Coach Roof with that experience, I mean, he's coached at a lot of big time places. I think he was with Gus.
He was at Gus at Auburn.
At Auburn, yeah. And I think he was at Oklahoma.
Last year.
So I mean, he's seen everything. He's seen a lot of football. So it'll be interesting to see what little tweaks he makes and what little wrinkles he adds to the defense. And the guys have to execute it. I think we're bringing back a lot of talent up front. We're bringing back a lot of talent in the back end. To me, you bring that talent back, you can run a lot of complexity of the defense. You just have to get the linebackers and figure out what they can do, what they can't, and you can kind of mask it up front. You can mask it in the back end. So it'll be interesting. I can't wait to see it. I think I'm going to the spring game Friday, so it'll be vanilla, but I'll see if there's any differences up front.
All right, awesome. Looking forward to your expert analysis, although it will be vanilla for the spring game. By the way, something I learned this week is, we complain about not having the spring game televised. However, Oklahoma State doesn't even do a spring game. They don't even have a spring game. So that's kind of crazy. So as much as we like to complain because we are the University of Complaining Fans, right? The fact that we have a spring game and we're able to enjoy it, and there's all of the different things that are around it, is super exciting. All right, so staying on the defensive theme, UCF did land its seventh commitment of the 2025 class. 3-star defensive tackle, Ryshawn Perry, brother of former UCF DB Kobe Perry. For those of you that remember him, I do remember him, and he was a good player in his own right. He's 6'3", 275 pounds. He's from Covington, Georgia. First defensive lineman of the class, and we are stacking defensive linemen. So I know you guys are thinking, oh, this guy's a 3-star. What's so special? Well, his offer list was a mile long. He's a guy who didn't go to a lot of the camps, but a lot of folks picked up on him. I don't have the offer list in front of me. Maybe Alan can look it up. But I remember when I was reading about it, he had a mile long list and big names. Auburn was interested in him. I think Georgia was interested in him. A bunch of really, really big name schools were interested in him. So I'll give Alan a second to look that up. Also, Joshua Selskar finally landed at a school. He's headed to Texas A&M. So get that bag, because you weren't going to get playing time at UCF with the folks that we had on defensive line this year. So it's unfortunate. I really like Josh. He was, he spent 4 years here. He was a stand-up guy. He was a quote-unquote vocal leader on the defense, but just generally just a great, great human being. So I hope he got paid.
He got paid if he's at A&M. They pay top-notch from what I hear.
Yeah, bags on bags, right? Yeah. So Miami of Texas. So I wish him a lot of luck. Like I said, really, really stand-up dude, and one of those guys you root for even when he leaves the Knights. All right, Alan, did I give you enough time with that?
Yeah.
To look up the offer list. What do we got?
Yeah, so he apparently was a little under-recruited, and his name started to blow up in the last 3 to 6 months or so. He was actually the 4A defensive player of the year, so that should tell you he's pretty damn good. And
hey,
pretty dang good.
Dang good. E for everyone, not E for explicit. I didn't tell our guests that, but I'm going to tell you that because you should know better. Come on.
Yeah, all right. So he was ranked 90th in the state of Georgia. And then as far as offers, just the highlights here, at least for the P4 offers, he had an offer from Arkansas, Auburn, Duke, Houston, Indiana, LSU, Maryland, Michigan State, NC State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Pitt, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. So he had some pretty good offers.
So Ole Miss, is that their new nickname? Ole Miss?
Ole Miss.
Ole Mids.
Ole Mississippi.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I like that one better. We're keeping that one, Ole Mids. Anytime we talk about Ole Miss on the podcast now, it's going to be.
Can't say that. I have clients in Oxford.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can say that. You already did. It's on video, dude.
I know.
We're not editing that out.
Sorry, I just
fine.
Thought of two because you mentioned that he's Kobe Perry's brother. A good stat. I know, Josh, you said your fun fact. I take away. How many brothers has UCF had on the same team, whether it's at the same time or whatever? Because there's been a lot, and there's some right now.
We were Twin U for a while.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even just guys that are for example, Bam Moore and Cam Moore right now that are and then obviously Gabe Davis and Jordan Davis. I mean, there's a lot of guys that aren't even just twins that are just brothers that are on the team.
Didn't we have triplets at one point? Weren't the offensive linemen
the Rays? Jordan
McCrae's
or McCrae's, Jordan McCrae, Justin McCrae, and I forgot the third one's name, but yeah,
he played center for us for a little bit. The third one.
You got Damari and Jakari Henderson right now. So there's a lot.
Shaquem and Shaquille. There was
I feel like we're missing another one.
Oh, we're missing a lot of them.
Yeah,
but.
Jordan, Cliff, and Justin. Cliff.
I don't know Cliff. I don't know them.
No, I don't think he went by Cliff. He went by something else because he actually played for us for a bit there.
This is the UCF.edu news article. Brothers Cliff McCrae, Jordan McCrae, and Justin McCrae. 63, 64, 65.
Interesting.
I don't remember it either, honestly.
I don't remember him being named Cliff. I remember him being named something else, but that's okay. His given name was Cliff. So I don't know if that's short for Clifford. I don't know if he hangs out at the bar at Cheers. But
Norm.
Norm. But he's our guy. So all right. Josh will have to come up with that for us at some point. So UCF basketball, let's go ahead and pivot. All right. So other than everybody leaving, we've got another leaving story for us this week. CJ Walker has transferred to TCU. Like
Boo.
everybody in boo. Exactly. Like if that doesn't tell you where UCF basketball is right now, I don't know what else does. I know Ben's not here to rally behind Johnny Dawkins. But I'm sorry, that's, between the people leaving and getting out of their NILs, the folks that are already on the team that are leaving, CJ going to an in-state rival. Now, I know people can transfer wherever they want, or not in-state rival, in-conference rival. It just doesn't sit with me. It just doesn't sit well at all.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, it shouldn't be allowed. I agree. It shouldn't be allowed. But Johnny Dawkins doesn't put many rules out there. That being said,
I don't think you can't block that anymore. I think my year was the last year you could block like in conference transfer.
You can't, but there's still a wink. But again, part of that is we are in the top basketball conference, as our Arizona contributor said. The SEC of basketball. Hold
on. I want to go to something there. We're not the SEC of basketball. We're the Big 12 of basketball. There's no comparison here at this point. I don't care how the ACC or the SEC want to see
there
it.
is this year. Alabama made it farther than any of our teams.
You take 5 people off of Alabama, 4 people off of Alabama, they're losing like Houston did. Snead twisting his ankle and him having 6 players left.
Are you saying you take all the starters off the starting team off of the Alabama and they won't perform as well? What are you saying right now? I don't understand. Help me follow your logic.
Yeah, sure. Houston lost 1 starter and 2 reserves, and they lost basically one of the best players in the country during that game. If you do that to any team in the country, they're going to lose too. And I think Houston did pretty darn good with what they had left of a team. I think they had like 6 players left. What
did we say all season with Houston?
The injuries
and played the same 6 guys. That's what we said the entire season. And when you play the tournament, you've got to have more than 6 guys that you're going to be able to rotate in there if you're going to last. Because not only is it injury,
you're not wrong,
but it's also you're playing short intervals in between games. So your guys are going to be worn out if you don't have more depth than that. Kelvin Sampson, by the way, I think he got head coach of the year this year as well.
He did by 1 vote.
Yeah, so I want Johnny Dawkins stripping on the court like Kelvin Sampson does if he's going to be our coach for the next 2 years. So,
sorry, that was easy. I mean, come on. Here's a great comparison, and whether it works or not is a whole nother story. But you have Hurley over here, and I wasn't even going to watch this national championship game because I pretty much knew exactly what was going to happen. Purdue is going to put up a good fight, and UConn is going to take it away in the second half. Maybe that continues to be the trend right now, but that's what's going on in this game. But watching him, I feel like UCF fans want to see that. We want to see someone not to the level of Bobby Knight, perhaps. I don't want people throwing chairs across courts and that.
I do.
I want something a little more passion than what we're getting from our.
Okay, so hold on. You guys ripped me apart for that, and Ben did too. And I hate
was on the episode
that Ben's not here on this on this episode to kind of defend himself, right? He said from a player's perspective, he'd rather have someone that's more even keel, right? But to me, if I'm watching people, and how players respond, yes, would I like for them to be self-motivated, the players, but I want someone who's going to be fiery, either with the refs the entire game. Now, Johnny did come out of his shell a little bit, out of his turtleneck a little bit this season, and was, gave a disapproving eyebrow and had some conversations with refs at times. But, nothing like we see Kelvin Sampson. Part of being a head coach is being in the refs' ears and trying to get in their,
refs.
Get into their heads a little bit, right? Now, I'm not advocating Kelvin Sampson's tirade where he's going after a ref in the middle of a game. I'm not saying that level, but, start in their ear and end in their ear. It's only going to help you. If anything, they're going to be tired of listening to you and they're not going to be able to kick you out anyway. So whatever. That's part of your job as a head coach, right? And then the other part about it is, I know Ben said he'd rather have, an even-keeled person, but I know for me, every once in a while, I need someone to, if a game's not going well, or I need to be shaken out of something that's going sideways, or I'm not, adhering to the game plan. How many times did you hear players say that they didn't adhere to the game plan? Shamari Allen did, right before our last NIT game against the Cows. If that's happening, I want you to yell at me on the court and wake me up. And I didn't see that with Johnny Dawkins. And I'm not going to make this a Johnny Dawkins bashing show. That's not the point. But I agree with you, Josh. And this is what I said earlier in the season. And I got lambasted on this podcast for saying by banning the rest of you guys. You're like, oh, no.
Oh, hold on. I will never shy away from an animated coach because I like it. I don't know if I want them literally throwing chairs because that's a little wild, but
Alan does. Alan's got anger management.
I didn't think I said that. I don't care if he's animated or if he's even keeled. I just want him to win. And I hear a lot of people rip him for the lack of animation. I don't want Bobby Knight, but I don't really, maybe I did say, I don't remember. I really don't care what he does as long as he wins. Just win, baby.
Well, yeah, 100%. But the coaches that you see that are consistently winning, they all seem to have that fire while they're on the court. I don't want them complaining about every single thing, right?
Yeah,
because if they're complaining about every single thing, it's like, really? Then you're just bloviating, right? And
who are the coaches that are always winning? I mean, I'm not a basketball knowledge guy, but
okay. So let's take
the same four programs.
Yeah, but to me, I'm like those same top programs. Yeah, their coaches might be boisterous and just loud, but they're also getting the top talent in the country for the most part. That's probably why they're winning.
Yeah, but why do they do that? Because they win, and part of that is the coach. It's a team game, which includes the coach.
Basketball is hard for me because I feel like that's more, that's almost even more rooted in you go to Kansas, you're going first round. You go to Kentucky, you're going first round. You go to UNC, Duke, you're going first round. Whereas football, it's kind of more spread out, So I think basketball is more talent dominated, in my opinion. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. There's less people. There's less people on the court.
So I think those top teams that win every year, they recruit the best talent. Even a team like Gonzaga, who might not recruit the best talent, but eventually they have those 3 or 4 year guys who are, some of them actually end up going to the NBA. So I think basketball is almost a heavier talent leaning.
But look at it. Rick Pitino, right? You know him. Bruce Pearl, you know him. John Calipari, right?
I mean, but look at these guys that they're coaching. You're talking about some guys that are coaching.
I get that, but even Calipari, right? What was the reason he's leaving Kentucky, right? What's the reason for that? Because his system
won a championship in a decade.
Yeah, that's why.
No, it's because he's bringing in one and dones, and it doesn't work anymore with the NIL and the transfer portal.
That's fair.
That's why, right? But he's still animated on the court. Kelvin Sampson, Coach of the Year. He's animated on the court. Who is the Wichita State guy? I can't remember his name that got fired.
Greg. Oh, God. I
looked
this up.
Greg Marshall. Okay, Greg Marshall, right? Do I want Greg Marshall? No. But do I want Greg Marshall's court presence? Yes. Right? The guys that consistently win all have that trait about them. I don't see anybody standing on the sideline shaking his head in disapproval, or not even shaking his head, just kind of looking like this. and winning basketball games. I
agree. I agree. I just think, again, like most of those guys, their selling point, I don't think the selling point is, oh, he coaches animated. Like that's why kids come. It's, hey, John Calipari. Oh, you put Derrick Rose in the NBA? Okay, you put all these kids in the NBA. Yeah, Bruce Pearl. You coach all these NBA level players. That's ultimately what basketball. At least those high level guys, they all see themselves as one.
Where did Bruce Pearl coach?
He coached it. Was it Tennessee, Auburn? If I'm mistaken, I remember one of the guys that I went to high school with.
It wasn't
Davis. He ended up going to Tennessee.
So the point
he's like Bruce Pearl is going to put me in the NBA.
They're not like John Calipari as an example. That's his whole system is putting people in the NBA. Yeah. Those the other teams, not so much, but they still went to play for him because he's as animated and into the game as what the players are, and it gets them motivated to fight. And you know this as well as I do. And they even mentioned, I think Ted Roof mentioned this in his press conference this week, right? It's not about giving your all. And Ted Roof said it was about straining. And what he meant by straining was after you give it your all, right? What's that extra little bit in the tank that you give to make it a championship team? And I think
to me personally, I don't think that's coaching. I think that's a player makeup because, for example, our national champion, not national, like that UCF team.
What do you mean not national champion? No, you take that back.
I think it took another year.
Yeah, that's why. That UCF team of 2017, we had that exact same that in us, but it just didn't work in 2015. It wasn't like we strained, it just didn't work. So like I think it's you have to have that in you to want to do it. There are guys who are literally will not do it. They're just like, I can't do it. And they tap out. And I'm not saying that's fine, but there are people that are like that. There's people in this world who won't go that extra.
And coaches get rid of those guys, right? So
not all the time they don't, because there's a lot of really talented guys who don't have to strain because they're so talented. But it's in those hard moments, in those tough moments, it doesn't matter how talented you are. It's who wants it more. And I think that's a lot more exuded in football because it's such a physical game. It's such a physically demanding game versus basketball. And not to say anything wrong about
basketball is in the tournament because you're playing so often, right?
No, I'm just talking about the physicality of football over the course of 4 quarters, then over the course of 15 games. That's where it depends on who you are. You're not going to get through it healthy. You're not going to get through it clean because you're physically banged up. It's not going to happen. So either you dig deep or you tap out. Like that's it. And to some extent, that's how it is in basketball as well. But I don't think that's the coaches because the coaches can yell and rah all they want. If you don't want to dig deep, you're not going to dig deep. That's just who you are.
Yeah, but I think there's culture and belief in the coach too when it comes to winning. But all right, we're going to stop talking basketball because basketball season's over and Johnny Dawkins has still not accepted his contract. So what we are going to talk about is a winning team.
He hasn't accepted his contract.
No, he hasn't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he still hasn't accepted.
What have you been on here to talk about
supposedly. All right, this isn't 100% verified, but allegedly he's holding out for better terms and a longer deal. Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, this late in the cycle, what's UCF got?
Yeah,
and they can't afford anybody else, so leverage as much as you can. All right, UCF baseball is now, in one poll, ranked number 17 in the nation. They are ranked number 19 in another poll. And we all expected, I was talking to the team in our text talk, which we didn't do text talk this week. Okay, so while I'm talking, you guys look up your text talks.
I don't have them.
We're not going to have. Oh, yeah,
we talk enough on text. Come on now. That being said, this particular team, we were expecting them. They were ranked number 25 or number 24, depending on where you were looking going into it. We were not expecting them to jump as high as they did. They had the number 8 RPI in the nation going into the series with a very, very explosive Kansas State offense. Their hitting has been stellar. They led the Big 12 in hitting. And our pitching staff, the thing about this baseball team that we asked this question at the beginning of the season was, what's the pitching staff? How's the pitching staff going to perform? Right. And so Coach Wallace did a good job of bringing some guys in. He also has done, our new pitching coach has done an excellent job in turning around the mindset and bringing a lot of the guys that kind of faltered last year up to par. And they are excellent. And our depth in the bullpen is exceedingly good. Right. And because it's exceedingly good, it allows us to outlast a lot of teams. And this is what I was saying, texting to the guys. This team can outlast the bullpens of other people, which is really, really good when it comes to tournament time. We had our starter at the last game, the third game. He has a little bit of an injury. They took him out after the first. And we were able to bring somebody else in who came in behind him and just fanned 7 straight batters. So if you have that level of depth in your bullpen and in your pitching staff, that will take you a long way when it comes to a season and ultimately in conference. So I expect this team to continue to play. West Virginia is going to be a tough out. We're going to be playing them. Their record doesn't reflect how good they've played, and it's going to be cold weather in the first game. But this team, if you're not aware, along with our men's tennis team, which I think is now 18-3 and ranked highly, you should be aware and you should be following them. They're fun. Andrew Sundin is out, but they're still hitting. They can play small ball. They play good defense, and they can pitch really, really well. This is a team that will win. Coach Wallace has done a great job. We had him on earlier this season when he first took over. He's one of the guys. He's somebody you should root for. So make sure you get out to the ballpark. There's more to talk about, but that's my overview of the baseball team right now. What do you guys want to add about baseball?
Well, you're talking about text talk, and I was watching that game 3 against Kansas State, and that was a great game for so many reasons. But there was an inning where I was texting, the team knocked out Kansas State's starter in the 5th and had a 3-run inning, including 2. And I'm pretty sure they were back-to-back bunts for singles.
Correct.
And to me, that's like the interesting part about this year. Like last year is a lot of home runs, and there's still a lot of that going on now, but some of that small ball and just interesting ways to, we had 2 walk-off hit by pitch wins, 2 back-to-back bunt singles in an inning we needed to get some runs because it was a tighter game. Like all these little intricacies of the baseball team is just really wonderful to see when you have a chance to, or listen to, if you're listening to Mark Daniels or the radio, or just experience afterwards. It's a great team, and it's wonderful watching them. And they have 4 straight conference wins in a row.
Josh, here's the question: Have you been going to the home games?
Have I? No, I have not.
Well,
that's it.
That's it. That's why we've been winning right there. That's
oh god. The sad part is that I was going to go a couple of times, but I have not yet.
Good.
I got to get out to the park one time. I'll go when we play like Mercer or someone.
Well, we're playing Stetson next, so you can go to the Stetson game. Although Stetson usually has a good bet.
They usually, yeah. I don't think they have the pictures they've had in the past right now. But yeah, I'll find some easy game to go to so I don't tempt the.
We have like North Central Florida. Michigan for 4 games or something like that.
Yeah, that's coming up.
I got a question because I don't know this about college. Why do they keep having a conference series and then a non-conference Why does it keep doing that? Why isn't it just like all the other sports where it's just conference play?
Well, you want a certain number of games, right? So the challenge is, especially with us moving conferences recently, is it's kind of like football in the sense that you need filler games, but with baseball, you need a certain number of games. And if you're in a good conference, you need to get teams that to fill out the schedule, because you need 40 wins really to get to to get to a regional. So
it doesn't appear like they even play every in-conference team. We're not even playing every single one.
Correct. You're only allowed to play as part of the conference contract. You only play a certain number of games, just like everyone else. So like football, we don't play all of our games against conferences, right? So you need.
But I'm saying there's like enough games where because they have all these filler games, they could replace those in theory with teams we're not playing in the conference, right? Or because there's enough.
Say that again.
Like I'm saying, like. Okay, like in football, there's only 12 games, so you can't play everyone. But like with baseball, there's enough games where we, in theory, could play every single conference team at least once. But there's all these other games like Central Michigan and all these other ones where, like, that are taking up those potential spots to play conference.
Opponents. Right. Well, that's because you only have so many series weekends within a season, right? So you have to play 3 games to win a series, and that's how you're measured, right? There's not enough time in a baseball season for you to play 3-game series with all of your conference opponents. So you still have to hit a certain number of games, and you have to fill those spots with teams that you can get 1-game series with, right? So, unfortunately, we kind of got stuck. We had a lot of low RPI, or very low RPI games, which hurts our RPI. I think we're better off. We got rained out a couple of weeks ago, and we're better from an RPI perspective because of that, right? So when we play Central Michigan or teams like that are like 258 RPI, it's actually going to dip it. The other problem that we've had is some of our out-of-conference games now are quad 1 to quad 2. So, for example, they got it pushed out of the top 5. So yes, it's still a win, but it's now a quad 2 win versus quad 1 win. I don't know. Do I sound choppy?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Closer to the mic. That being said, I hope that explains it. But basically, you don't have enough weekends to have 3.
You can't play a 3-game series with everybody in the conference. There's not enough time.
Yeah, within the season.
Or they'd be playing all 3-game series. It'd have to be during the week, like every other week. You'd be playing 6 games in a week, in a sense.
Yep.
Which turn would turn to the MLB.
And that's also good, too, because your pitching staff you want to keep for those weekend conference seasons, right?
And again, they're not pros yet because they still have class. They still have all the other theatrics of being a college athlete versus, pros are getting round the clock
parties. All that stuff.
Exactly. But the pros are getting like round the clock treatment. They're getting, they have 40, 50 guys. There's, so it's so much more nuance in the MLB. That's why they play so much more, but similar to it.
There you go. All right. So hopefully we've answered that for Alan and anybody else who was listening and was wondering what Alan's question there. So UCF also did play Bethune-Cookman and beat them 14-1. How times have changed, right? So BCU was a frequent opponent for us not too long ago in the Rich Wallace playing days in the early 2000s. BCU usually has a good baseball team. UCF just is a Power 5 team. Houston, actually, traditionally very, very good baseball teams, not doing so well this season. And ECU, our perennial nemesis, who has a UCF alum also as their head coach, is ranked ahead of us. So hopefully we can catch up to them. So the game versus North Florida was postponed because of the rain, as we talked about earlier. This is our 4th straight series win. We're 21-8 overall, 8-7 in the Big 12, and we play Stetson next. This baseball team, I'm telling you right now, Josh, you mentioned close games. This is a team that has the pitching staff to keep it close and has a penchant in the 9th inning. I know earlier in the season I had texted to everybody, "Oh, this game's over," blah blah blah. And we came back. I remember that. They've now demonstrated that they have a penchant for 8th and 9th inning to find a way, and I believe that has a lot to do with Coach Wallace. And he said this week they're also learning how to play the UCF way, which is his way, which is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. So we don't, by the way, one of the things we question is, why do we have pitchers going out with injuries all the time under our previous coaching staff, Greg Lovelady? We're halfway through the season, knock on wood, don't have any major injuries. Hopefully we keep that up. Estrella has been playing really, really well. Stagliano has been pitching really, really well. And I'm excited about this baseball team. And we're only a little over halfway through. But this is a team that should or could compete for a regional and should be watched by you this every weekend. So, all right, that's all we've got. Trey's not yelling at a cloud right now. We don't have any student re-education. So let's go ahead and move on to Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week.
Well, it's
which he doesn't have
because I don't have one.
Did you?
Oh my gosh, he doesn't have one this week.
You got to read the
well,
notes.
there's no sports going on. I mean, there's no like.
Come on.
What do you mean there's no sports? We've got a tennis
there's
team
no, like,
that's like ranked. We've got a baseball team that's ranked. Softball had a sweep. They're on a roll. They swept BYU. There's lots.
I'm changing to Alan's oxymoronic football and basketball style.
we know where Alan's heart is. Clearly, folks. If you didn't know before, you know now. All right, moving on. Josh, do you actually have a sometimes funny fact because it's been taken twice this week?
So this is like the second or third time a guest has taken my fun fact, because legit I was going to do the Dino Babers thing that happened earlier. So I had to pivot to get to something, right? And you know what? Even though Alan isn't a fan of our baseball team, is what I'm hearing.
Wow.
I have a baseball sometimes funny fact. So according to D1 Baseball, out of 732 pitchers, which UCF pitcher is number one in the nation in giving up the fewest hits? Period.
Fewest hits. Ooh.
Fewest hits. Number one in the nation out of 732 pitchers.
I don't think it's Stags. What do you think, Trey? You follow baseball.
I'll say Stags.
Alan, we know you follow baseball.
Well, I'm going to say Stags because that's the only player I know, and I learned his name 2 seconds ago.
Sorry, Coach Wallace.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, right? It's okay. You like what you like. And listen,
I can't force it. I can't. That's my thing.
Of course not. I mean, listen, if we had a UCF bowling team, we'd go hardcore. I'd start talking about.
I would with you too.
We used to have a national championship bowling team, by the way. Back in the day.
Oh God, Stephanie Best, I think, if I remember. Let's see if
she
I got
softball. She's softball, dude.
There was another Stephanie that was really good at bowling too.
I was about to say Stephanie softball.
Yeah, maybe I'm trying to pull it out. This is like 10, 15 years ago. I'm trying to pull it out of my head. She was pretty good too. Maybe she was the best. Hey, sorry.
Wow.
All right. So you actually said his name on this. It's Castellano. Dominic Castellano is giving up 14 hits in 30 innings of play.
Wow.
14 hits, and he's 2-0. Now, there is one other person in the nation who has only given up 14 hits, less than 9 games, less than 29 innings, and is 1-2. So you don't get a number one spot for that. 732 pitchers. Castellano, and I was going to use that as my text talk, but I had this in the back end. He was dealing last weekend. Like, he may be the Sunday starter if there really is an issue. Now I can't pull the gentleman's name off my head. Hastings. That was started for the inning. Then he was pulled, blister or something. He was pitching way slower than normal. But yeah, Castellano
10 miles an hour slower than normal.
Yeah. Castellano was just great, and that whole. I watched pretty much that entire game through all 9 innings. That was just a great game. So, yeah, fun fact. Castellano is the number one pitcher in the nation with a few hits given up.
Interesting. Yeah. You know, what's interesting for me too, this year is Nadger Victor didn't get as much play as I expected. He was someone that played really, really well last year, and I was expecting to play well this year. So it's a little surprising that he didn't get as much play this year. All right. While we were doing that, by the way, it's Stephanie Johnson was her name. Okay. That's who you were looking for.
Close though.
So, yeah, Johnson. But yeah, that's who you were looking for. Okay.
I knew it was a Stephanie. Listen, if I'm pulling off UCF based women's bowlers and she was good, and I get it confused with a darn good softball player, I apologize.
Bowling is your thing. Bowling is your thing. Come on, man.
It is, but UCF. I tried to get bowling at UCF for multiple years because at that time I was probably good enough to hold a decent club team together with what I was averaging.
Team?
What'd you bowl?
There wasn't. I was averaging between 190 and 210 at that point. Consistently would throw 200s. Maybe I'd like.
See, he had a very unique way of doing this, right? So what he did was he would jump over the foul laser beam there and just like head first into the pins, get a strike every time.
Yeah. No,
by the way, Hartley, I think, is who you're talking about on the pitching staff. Wiley Hartley.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, it was, and I hope Hartley's okay, honestly, because if he's doing okay and he's dealing on a Sunday, and you have Castellano in the back pocket for mid relief or the end, right? I think, Roger, to your point, the pitching has been really, really good, like better, I think, than expected. And that's maybe we can hopefully hold on to our pitching coach for another year or two.
Well, maybe we can do that, and maybe we can not lose pitchers midway through the season or 3/4 of the way through the season, because of our pitching coach. But okay, let's go ahead and talk. Josh, why don't you give us our quick update on other UCF sports that Alan does not watch?
Well, thank you, Roger. This is the quick update on other UCF. No, I'm not going to do that. I can't. No, I can't do that the whole time.
Come on, man. Do your radio voice.
Well, UCF women's tennis, they beat Kansas State University 4-1. Now, they had a close one with our team we like to beat a lot, the Oklahoma State.
Oh, my God. It's a thing now with Oklahoma State. Like Oklahoma State, like, they have a Twitter account called OSU Problems, and it actually came up in the Big 12 thing because the guy who's doing the Big 12 podcast is the OSU guy. And he mentioned we broke the curse, and I got to tell him, not in men's sports.
Listen, their women's team is number 1 in the nation, and we lost 4-3, and our women's team is doing a little bit better, but it's not like at the level of the men's tennis team this year. So they're going to play Iowa State next. I can't do the fake announcer voice that long, maybe if I don't break. So men's tennis, guess what? They're beating people like they usually do. Beat Texas Tech 4-2, beat BYU 4-3, and they play TCU next. And that is a top 5 team in the nation, ranked number 3. That's the final game of the regular season. So we're doing pretty good there. UCF softball, we swept North Florida. We swept BYU. And I think that's our first Big 12 sweep in softball, if I remember correctly. And we are playing Jacksonville next. It is going to be a fun sports week, too, with the spring game coming up, and hopefully get some, maybe see how we do in conference championships with some of our spring sports.
All right, Alan, I have a question for you. Next week, can you include UCF track, because they've been doing really, really, really well, setting like national records and stuff, and they're not included on here. So can we include them on here for the next show?
We sure can. And I'd like to add, outside of football and basketball, if there was a I don't know if this even exists, but a UCF boxing team, I would definitely be into that. That would be really cool.
All right, you heard it here first. Alan is a pugilist. All right.
I've been called worse.
That's my second big word for this this podcast, because Josh told me that I should not use certain words on here because they're SAT level words.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Bloviate, I think, was the word that I used.
Yes, it was bloviate.
He said that?
It like I'm 5.
Yes,
Listen,
I did. I said bloviate. By the
If you-
way, where
if you want
are
to sound erudite, I mean, come on.
oh, come on. Where are words that we're supposed to be inserting during the
We didn't. That's what happens when I
Josh,
go on
that's
vacation.
your thing. So you should be soliciting the words. So
No solicitations happening here.
okay. B. All right.
There's a no in front of that.
Great
No.
show, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for holding it down last week for me. I really do appreciate it. I had some things that I had to attend to. I was not on vacation like Josh Lazar is playing with swords in the woods. But
That was old vacation. I was
The what?
I was trying to find Dolly Parton. That was
we'll have that conversation offline.
What was he doing?
He was playing swords in the woods. So we're gonna leave it there and let you wonder.
Those, Nitro.
So, yeah. those that listen to us consistently understand what that reference is. But we're super excited to be part of the College
That's
Huddle.
right.
You're gonna see a lot more great content come from that. We're gonna up our game, and we've got a lot of great people that are going to help us on our journey in the Big 12. So thank you so much this week. Thank you, Nobra. Thank you, Brett, for coming on and introducing us to Arizona officially. Go Knights and
Charge on.
We're not going to talk about the duck. We lost the duck. The whole back